Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto began a new life filled with forbidden allure, hidden desires, and the unbreakable temptations of the women drawn to his rising power part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Naruto was lying in his hospital bed, a big grin on his face. He had just defeated the entire Akatsuki all by himself. The rest of the village were beginning to like and trust him. The council on the other hand was still as arrogant as ever. They denied him the position of Hokage and denied him the rights to marriage in the Fire Nation, and if he got married in other lands and then returned to the village he would be rejected and thrown out of the village by law. This made Naruto extremely sad. After all he had done for this village, they still didn't see him as a person, they still couldn't see that he wasn't a demon but a young man. He perked up though as he remembered the villagers, how they praised him when he returned, how they thanked him and apologized for all their mistakes and mistreatment that they brought upon him. Naruto was happy that they didn't shun him or try to attack him when he returned. He wouldn't be able to defend himself because he had broken both of his arms after he unleashed Rasen Shuriken after Rasen Shuriken on the Akatsuki members. Naruto was also extremely happy because Shion, the girl he had impregnated so she could continue the line of the priestess, was also close to giving birth. 9 months in, he had learned to love her, although she always loved him. Ever since he stuck up for her and never gave up on her, proving that fate wasn't always destined, and that anyone could change their fate. Naruto also had a spot in his heart for other women, the girls he had loved for a long time. They meant everything to him. They all wanted to marry him and live together, but the council wouldn't allow it. He promised that after this was all over he would give a big talk to the other girls and tell them how he felt about each one of them. After all, he had Shion's blessing to do so. As he was contemplating all this he heard the door open slightly. A girl with pink hair and green eyes entered the room. It was his friend and teammate Sakura Haruno. Naruto smiled a friendly smile at his old-time schoolyard crush. She smiled gently back. "Hello Naruto-kun," she smiled. "Always getting put in hospitals these days I see," Sakura said quietly. Naruto didn't like the way she was approaching him. Too much like a predator sneaks up on its prey. "Sakura-chan?" Naruto questionably asked, but before he could ask anything else Sakura lunged at him. He felt a sharp object enter his neck. Naruto winced at the sudden pain he felt. Sakura got close to his left ear as everything started to go black. "I'm sorry I have to do this Naruto-kun, it's what Sasuke-kun wanted," Sakura said sadly as she pulled away to see his hurt face. Naruto stared at her as if not believing what's going on. "Why, Sakura-chan?" Naruto asked quietly as his eyelids grew heavier and heavier until they shut and the eternal abyss of darkness greeted him with open arms. Sakura had a look of utter guilt on her face, but she didn't care so long as she was with Sasuke. She chirped up on a happier tone as she thought of all the things she could do with him now. She giggled perversely at the thought. Oh. Naruto opened his eyes slowly. He still felt weak from what was injected into him, his broken arms by his sides limply. As feeling returned to his body he felt the slight restriction of his throat. As his eyes cleared and the haze was swept away he could make out the figure of his ex-friend, Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto's face contorted in anger. "Why am I here, Tem? What are you planning to do?" Naruto asked angrily. Sasuke smirked at his rival. Today would be a day to remember. Sasuke looked down to see all the people who had gathered. The villagers were shouting their rage up to the top of the hospital. Sasuke sneered again. "Villagers of Konoha, I am going to free you of this demon. You will no longer have to coexist with this filth," Sasuke shouted out as the crowd roared with anger. The villagers were not happy that their hero was being treated so badly. The villagers shouted their protests to the runaway Uchiha, but their cries for him to stop fell upon deaf ears. "And I will not allow his demon spawn to be born either," Sasuke shouted as Sakura picked up a tied-up pale-eyed, pale yellow-haired woman, Shion, and dangled her body over the edge, hanging by her throat much like Naruto. Naruto looked on in shocked horror. No, please, you can do anything you want to me, just please don't kill her. I will do anything you want, just let her and the baby live. Naruto shouted out as he started to panic. He started hyperventilating and going a ghostly white pale. Sasuke sneered once again at the weak acts of his rival. Begging for another's life. How weak. I once thought of you as a great rival, now you're just a begging simpleton. Sasuke smirked as he watched Naruto's tears fall. Sakura was feeling a deep emptiness in her stomach. It was regret, it was guilt, but it was suddenly replaced with the joy of the Uchiha. The shallow pink-haired harpy showed no more thought to the matter. Naruto let more tears fall. Please, let her live. She hasn't done anything. It's me you want. Naruto shouted out, absolutely terrified. Sasuke smirked and gave Naruto an evil laugh. Sakura smirked as well. Naruto's heart was beating inside of him like a drill. Naruto had never been so scared in his life. He had absolutely no power over the situation. He was weak from the drugs, so he couldn't move his legs. His arms were broken. His, Shien's and their baby's life were in the hands of his two ex-teammates and former friends. Naruto saw Sakura blush while looking at the deranged psychotic traitor that held him by his throat. It sickened Naruto to see this reaction from his former friend. Ha! The Dobi is begging at my feet. What a sight! Sasuke shouted out with malice. Both Sasuke and Sakura laughed at the teary face of their old teammate. Sasuke brought out his chakra-enhanced Chidori blade. Naruto's heart stopped for a second. With this, I will end both the demons and his whore's life, along with their disgusting demon spawn. Sasuke viciously yelled out with venom lingering to every word. Oh, Hokage Tower, Tsunade's office. Tsunade was sitting at her desk with a giant headache. The reason behind the headache was because a lot of girls were all clamoring to bash the council's skulls together. The reason behind why is because after Naruto learned to become a Toad Sage, he was officially denied the rank of Hokage, and denied to be married in Konoha. The girls were furious. Hinata, Ino, Tenten, Temari, Isaribi, Kurenai, Shizune and Anko were all in the office. They were the furious girls. And so the complaints carried on. This is so not right. He's a hero and the council looks at him like he's a damn weapon. We know he's not the Kyuubi, and we know he's not a monster. He's a kind, caring, sweet, lovable, attractive, responsible, strong, and he's the nicest guy any of us have ever met. He always puts people above himself. He would put his life on the line just to protect a stranger. He's the most purest soul I have ever met, and he deserves better than this. Ino shouted out in unrivaled rage. All the girls with her nodded in agreement and contributed their own 2 cents into the conversation. Listen, I can't do any, Tsunade said, but was interrupted by the loudest horror-filled scream they had ever heard. It shook them all to the bone. Ah! Came the cries of a male voice that sounded very familiar to someone they all knew and loved, but the scream was unlike anything they had ever heard from him. The cries came from the hospital roof. All the girls in the room hurried over to the window and gasped or yelped in shock horror at what they saw. Naruto was dangling over the hospital roof with Sasuke holding his neck. The truly horrifying thing they saw was that Sasuke had his other hand that was holding a blade lunge into Shien's 9-month pregnant womb, thus instantly killing the baby. The girls spent no time staying still. They all rushed to the scene as fast as their legs could carry them. Oh! Naruto cried out in unrivaled sorrow. Shien was wincing at the pain but crying heavily at the loss. She could feel that her baby was hurt during that blow. It was a motherly thing. She cried out her sorrow as Sakura smirked at the girl. Will you stop crying already? You're hurting Sasuke-kun's ears, Sakura said with an evil smirk. Sakura looked at Sasuke, who nodded back to her as if telling her, yes. Naruto was still disorientated and crying hysterically. He then felt something falling through the air. His eyes snapped wide open and looked at Sakura. Shien was no longer there. It took all his strength his body could produce to look downwards. He saw Shien's bloodied, crippled body slumped across the pavement below. Ah, no, Shien, no. Naruto cried out as tears fell from his face like there was no tomorrow. Naruto then felt a horrible piercing in his flesh. Naruto looked up to see that Sasuke had plunged the sword into his chest also. Piercing his heart, Sasuke dragged the blade through his chest, leaving him dying. Not even the demon fox himself could heal that wound. "You're dying, Naruto Baka, and you're about to meet the fate of your whore," Sasuke whispered into Naruto's ear before releasing his grip around Naruto's neck. As Naruto fell from the high building, he started to see images of the smiling, happy faces of his loved ones. Oh, how he would miss all of them. Naruto landed with a sickening thud on the floor as the villagers ran to his side, screaming and crying out their sorrow. Hinata, Ino, Tenten, Temari, Kurenai, Anko, Tsunade, Shizune and Isaribi ran to his side with tears flowing down their faces. Ino and Tsunade tried their best to heal their love, giving him only precious seconds of time to talk to them all. "Girls, I have something I need to say," Naruto said weakly as all the girls inched nearer so they could listen to what he needed to say. All girls had tears flowing from them but denied themselves the need to cry. They needed to listen to what he had to say. I'm sorry I couldn't keep up with my promises," Naruto said weakly. All the girls were crying heavily as they got as near as they could to Naruto to hear his final words. Blood started to leak from his eyes, nose, ears and mouth. I love you all," Naruto shouted as his body jerked then went limp. Life left his eyes as they slowly shut. The girls couldn't keep it in any longer as they screamed to the heavens for all to hear their sorrow. "Naruto!" The girls shouted in unison as they all clung to his body, crying into his chest to come back, as if it could save him. There was a flicker red chakra that released itself from Naruto's mouth. The girls didn't notice the red flicker of chakra that was released. They were too busy crying out his name into his chest or other parts of his body. Tsunade gave Naruto's limp mouth one last kiss as her tears rolled down her face and landed on Naruto's pale face. The red chakra flicker expanded until it was the size of a mountain. The red chakra slowly vanished, revealing Kyuubi, the nine-tailed demon fox. The girls noticed the chakra spike coming a few meters away and looked up at the great demon. The most surprising thing they saw was that Kyuubi was crying. She had a look of utter lose on her face. "Please do not be frightened, humans. I'm here to tell you that there's a way for you to see Naruto-kun again. Shinigami-sama has an offer to propose to us all," Kyuubi said as a black swirl that was not of this earth made its existence into it. The black swirl kept spinning until a deathly visage exited it. The swirl vanished as the ghostly figure wearing black robes came into existence. "Hello, do not be afraid, your souls are not tainted by the evils of this earth. I have decided that Naruto-san is not to die today, but the only way to bring him back to life is if you all go back in time. There Naruto will remember everything, the deal I'm making with you, the fact that Shion died by the evil one and his accomplice's hands, and he won't forget what he told you. When I send you back, I want you to stop the lives of several people from dying," Shinigami said in a deep booming voice, filled with power and authority. The demon fox nodded vigorously. The girls were shouting their thanks to the death god as they cried tears of joy. "Then this is what is going to happen. I will send all of you back in time, including Kyuubi. Naruto will merge with Kyuubi's chakra, becoming half-demon. Kyuubi will be released into the world with one tail, while Naruto will have 9, the extra tail is a gift from me. He will become the new demon lord. To mark you as a mate he will need to bite you on your neck. You will need to do the same to him. This will leave a mark that shows you as his and him as yours. The bite will also transform you into one-tail half-demons. He will need to pick an alpha for the pack. The alpha must be the one to take the boy's virginity, or I'm afraid that creates a paradox for what we have decided will happen, so that you must decide now," Shinigami said as he crossed his arms, waiting for their answer. The girls blushed intensely, but although for a second, they needed to decide who deserved to be Naruto's alpha the most. It hit them all at the same time. "We want Hinata to be the alpha," Tsunade said along with everyone agreeing. Hinata blushed bright red at this. Me. Hinata stuttered as she tried to hide her face with her hands, she was blushing tremendously red. The other girls smiled kindly at her cuteness, they knew Hinata deserved this more than anyone. Because Hinata-chan, you have loved Naruto the longest, you deserve to be the alpha more. Ino said with everyone nodding kindly at her. Hinata was blushing extremely red, but you could tell she was smiling, even if her hands were in the way. Thank you, Hinata said shyly as they all grinned kindly back. They hadn't forgotten about Naruto and Shion dying, but they put that horrible fact at the furthest point within their mind, for they knew that they would see the two again. Shinigami nodded his head and began to speak. Then it's settled. I have told Naruto who needs to be saved, it's up to him and the rest of you to right the wrongs that have been brought to your world. I apologize from behalf of myself and Kami for the mistakes made. Before I send you back in time, please sign this contract. This contract basically means that if you don't manage to succeed then you won't go to hell, your souls are to pure for that. And technically making a deal with Shinigami means that when you die you go to hell. This contract makes it so that rule won't apply to you all. Shinigami said as he handed them all the contract and a dark-looking pen to write with. After all the girls, including Kyuubi, had signed the contract they all felt extremely dizzy and faint. All the girls and Kyuubi in fox form fell to the floor, unconscious. Their bodies started to fade and vanish. The Shinigami nodded his approval before receding into the now opening black swirl of darkness. The villagers were shocked and awed by what they just witnessed. They noticed Naruto's body and Shion's body start to vanish too, until there was nothing there anymore. The villagers smiled happily that their hero got another chance. This would be a story to tell their grandchildren when they grew up. Oh, Naruto was sleeping in his apartment bed, he was sleeping quite soundly. Naruto felt a weight on his chest so he reached his hand out to touch it. The weight moaned lustfully as Naruto squeezed it. Naruto's eyes shot wide open as his eyes met with two red lust-filled orbs that stared with a look of wanting back at him. Naruto felt a lot stronger than he normally did, he felt as if he could do almost anything with this newfound strength and stamina. It was then that the memories of what happened to him and Shion came rushing back to him. He shot up from the bed only to be gently pushed back down by Kyuubi. Shish, don't fret master, the girls are fine, they're all fine. Are you okay? Kyuubi asked with a lot of worry coming from her words. She could see that he was disturbed and confused, even though Shinigami explained everything, and he understood it all, he was still feeling doubtful and unbelieving towards the situation. And no. Naruto stuttered as he brought his head into Kyuubi's shoulders, crying softly as he clung to her body. Kyuubi nuzzled him and caressed him with her tail as she tried to make him feel better. Even though Naruto knew Shion was safe, and that everyone he loved were too, he still couldn't help but be traumatized by the situation. Do you feel any better? Kyuubi asked softly as she continued to comfort him with her hold. Naruto didn't reply so she continued to hold him, to make him feel loved. After a while, Naruto brought himself together as he realized that whining and crying about the past wouldn't accomplish anything, and that it didn't matter because he knew all of his precious people were alive. I think I'm okay now. Although it may take some time for me to fully heal. Naruto explained as Kyuubi nodded her head in understanding, and quickly drove her lips to his, kissing him passionately and sweetly, letting him know he was loved. When they broke apart Naruto was blushing up a storm, remembering his chat with Shinigami, how the ghostly creature had told him he'd be able to have his own harem. Kyuubi-chan, Naruto said as she looked up into his face, smiling at him as she nuzzled into his chest. People who love me, I never knew the others love me so much as to be with me at the same time. Naruto thought as he blushed hard. I just wanted to get my feelings out there so I could feel better with myself. I never would have thought they all loved me. Naruto continued as he pondered upon his thoughts. So, when are you going to mark your alpha? Kyuubi asked with a grin as she tried to lighten up the mood a little. She didn't know if it was too soon, but she wanted to make Naruto feel better, to allow him to forget the recent tragedy. I'm sorry Kyuubi-chan, but I don't want to rush Hinata into anything. I will let her decide when she's ready. Naruto said as he got out of bed. Kyuubi got up also, blushing hard and trying to avert her gaze when she saw Naruto's new body. Naruto looked down in shock. He had 9 golden furry tails sticking out from above his backside. He quickly ran to the mirror to look himself over. He had blonde, golden hair with 2 blonde, golden fox ears sticking up from the top of his head. He was more muscle-bound, but with an athletic build. His eyes were still blue but with silted pupils. It was then that he remembered he had turned half-demon. Kyuubi walked up behind Naruto for comfort. She wrapped both arms around her mate's waist. Naruto smiled as she kissed his shoulders. This was the first time Naruto had a good look at her. She was about a head bigger than Naruto was. She was about 21 years old with crimson hair, 1 crimson tail and 2 crimson fox ears atop her head. She had a busty size to her. She had D-cup size that were round and gracious. She smiled as he sighed comfortably, seeming to relax a little. Although he knew he had no time for relaxing just yet, he pulled away from her slightly as she whimpered slightly at the loss of warmth. Come on, I need to get you some cloths. What sizes are you? I'll try to pick you out some ninja attire, Naruto asked as he got a pen and paper for her to write down her waist, bust etc sizes. While Naruto got dressed, Kyuubi wrote down her sizes. She also wrote what colors she liked and what colors she liked to match the other colors she wore. Naruto came out of the bathroom dressed in his usual orange jumpsuit. He frowned at it. Orange he liked, jumpsuits he did not. Kyuubi handed him the sheet of paper and knelt down so she could give him quick love-filled kiss. When she retracted, she saw the small smile on Naruto's face. Naruto turned and began walking until he heard Kyuubi following him. Naruto turned around and gave her a genuine smile. Please wait here and wait for me to give you your cloths, Naruto said as Kyuubi nodded a little sadly. She knew she didn't have cloths on, and that would be embarrassing, but she really didn't want to be on her own for too long. Anything you want me to do, master? Kyuubi nodded as she sat down on the bed. Naruto blushed at the unintentional erotic sentence, but shrugged it off as he exited the room with Kyuubi waiting for him. Naruto looked at the list in hand as he exited the room, and chuckled at what she wanted to wear. Naruto ran to the nearest ninja shop he could. He needed to do this all fast so he could go find his other mates. He noticed the date on a nearby information stand. Shit, it's team signing day tomorrow, Naruto exclaimed as he ran with unrivaled speed, that not even Guy could match. Well, at least we all still have our strengths and knowledge from before we came here. That means that I have another 7 years to become even stronger. Naruto thought as he got even faster, becoming that of a blur to all onlookers. Oh, Hyuga compound, Hinata's room. Hinata had just woken up. She had tears rolling down her face. She needed to see her Naruto-kun. She got dressed into her usual ninja wear. After she was dressed, she dashed out of her room, out of the building, out of the compound and through the streets, one destination in mind. Casino hotel bedroom. Both Tsunade and Shizune had woken up in a casino resort hotel. Shizune got dressed quickly. When she looked around, the sight that greeted her was extraordinary. Tsunade was an 18-year-old. She had the same bust size, but she defiantly looked younger. Shizune gasped at her master's appearance. Tsunade felt the change in both her age and her looks. She started to shake, not believing what's happening. She then burst out into tears of joy. This meant that she could have children with the man she loved. Shizune was by her side in an instant, stroking her hair and whispering sweet nothings into her ear. Tsunade was laughing with joy, as tears still continued to fall from her eyes. She couldn't remember being this happy, ever. The two decided to pay their rent and rush back to Konoha, needing to see their man once again. Yamanaka flower shop, Ino's bedroom. Ino had just woken up also. She got dressed into her usual ninja uniform and rushed out of her house, crying silent tears of joy that the man she loved would be alive once more. She ran down the streets of Konoha. She ran to the one place her heart would reside. Oh, Konoha. Weapons shop, Tenten's room. Tenten had woken up in a sweat. She had a really bad nightmare. She dreamt that Naruto died again, and that they couldn't help him again. Realizing that it was just a dream and that Naruto was still alive, she shot out of bed, got dressed and ran out of her house. She ran and ran. She was so happy that she got to see her man again. Oh, Konoha. Kurenai's house. Kurenai awoke in her bed. She felt her face and realized that she was in her younger form. She dashed out of her house and ran for all she was worth towards the only man that she would ever allow to be with herself. She ran to her love. She ran to her man. She ran to her sanctuary. Oh, Konoha. Anko's house. Anko awoke in her bed. She remembered all that had happened in her future timeline and she ran towards the house of the one man who ever treated her like she was more than the snake whore, the man that treated her fairly, the man who risked his life and almost lost it in protecting her. She ran with happy tears streaming down her face. She needed to hold her love once more. She needed to feel his embrace. Oh, Suna. Temari's house. Temari woke up crying tears of sadness for what happened to her love. They were quickly replaced by tears of joy as she remembered he was alive and sent back. She quickly got dressed, got her fan and ran outside. She jumped on her fan. As she was on her fan, she used a quick jutsu to make the fan glide through the air at a fast speed. She was heading for Konoha. She was heading for the one who held her heart, the one who if died, she would die with him. Oh, Demon Country. Priestess's quarters. Xian woke up groggily, her head pounding. It was then that she snapped wide awake. She got dressed into her priestess's robes and ran for the door. She got one of her men to drive a carriage to Konoha. She would be in the man she loves arms in 3 days. She touched her stomach where her baby used to be. She cried out in sorrow and despair as she remembered how much she had wanted Naruto's baby. She promised that when she got to Konoha she would jump him and make him give her the baby once more. She wanted the baby so badly. To be able to make love with Naruto and produce something as proof to that love was all the incentive she needed. She would have a child with Naruto, raise it and love it with all her heart. Oh, village hidden in the sea, outside house on the beach. Isaribi awoke in her small humble shack. She knew that Naruto was alive and so she hurried back to Konoha so that she could be with her man. She got dressed first and then set out to go find her love. She knew which way Konoha was so she just swam there. The transformation didn't happen because Tsunade got rid of it a few weeks after she arrived in Konoha. She started to swim towards the mainland that holds the Hidden Leaf Village in all its glory. Oh, Konoha. Market District. Naruto was walking down the market district. He had just brought his mate, Kyuubi-chan, a nice red ninja suit. The shirt was quite small for her but she insisted. The shirt was black and revealed a lot of her bust size. Her overcoat was a trench coat that was black with crimson flames. He had gotten her black Anbu pants with black shinobi sandals. Naruto sighed before running back to his apartment. Oh, Konoha. Naruto's apartment. Naruto was walking towards his apartment door. He reached out and turned the door knob. Naruto was outside his apartment door. He held out his hand to twist the door knob. Naruto entered his small apartment only to find it full of the woman he admired. All the girls in the room spun around so fast it made their heads spin. They all had tears flowing down their faces with looks of sadness and defeat. Naruto was about to say something but he never got the chance. He was charged and embraced by all the girls that were in the room. They were crying into different parts of his body. Naruto-kun, Hinata said as she tearfully looked up from his chest and into his eyes. Naruto embraced her back, letting a few of his own tears fall. My baby, she's dead. Naruto wailed into Hinata's chest. The girls started crying even harder with that statement. They couldn't imagine what pain Naruto could be in right now. They held onto the man they loved so much tighter and tighter. They wouldn't allow him to feel the sorrows of the life he had to live anymore. Don't worry Naruto-kun, she's safe now. She's back with us, you have the chance to have the baby with her all over again. Hinata said kindly as she wiped away Naruto's tears. Naruto nodded and smiled a weak smile. He couldn't help himself. He had to feel warmth again, he had to feel that someone was there for him, so he quickly embraced Hinata once again and held to her tightly as he rested his head in her chest. He shacked slightly every now and then. Hinata couldn't help but blush at where his head was positioned, she couldn't help but press his head into her more. She let out a quiet moan that made Naruto's face go red. The other girls smirked at this, they decided they wanted their fair share of groping. The group started to caress a body part that belonged to Naruto as he let out moans of pleasure. Before anyone could start to grope his prized possession, he decided to stop them all. Girls, wait, I was told by Shinigami-sama that my first time has to be with Hinata-chan, because she is supposed to be the alpha of the group. He says if I don't have my first time with Hinata-chan then the deal we made with him is void, and that we will all die. Naruto reasoned with them. They all had sad looks on their faces as they buried their faces into a part of his body. Naruto smiled at their cuteness. Naruto decided to get up. He noticed that not everyone was here. Hinata, Tenten, Ino, Kyuubi, Anko and Kurenai were here, but Shien, Isaribi, Tamari, Tsunade and Shizune weren't. He understood that they would live quite a long way away from Konoha, so he decided to wait patiently. The girls got off of Naruto reluctantly. It was then that they saw the fox ears and fox tails. Kawaii! Came the shouts of all the girls simultaneously as they glomped onto a tail or an ear, or both. It's so cute and furry, Ino said as she rubbed her cheek against a tail. As they started to pull and stroke, Naruto began to growl. They looked confused at first, but after looking at his face, it was mix of both pleasure and pain. They looked down to notice the giant tent in his pants. Please, don't do that, unless you want to make the contract void, Naruto grunted out. The other girls let go of his tail slyly. They would have to remember his little turn on when they finally get to have him. When they released him, he let out a sigh of relief. He handed Kyuubi the bags of cloths for her. After he made sure everyone had eaten, dressed and washed, he decided he needed a shower, a cold shower at that. Master, may I help you clean yourself? Kyuubi asked seductively with a feral grin on her face. Naruto gulped at the feral, lustful looks he was receiving from his female companions. I'm sorry, I don't think I could trust myself to be in a shower with any of you yet. I don't think I could control myself to behave, Naruto said with a bright blush. The other girls smirked at this. It was nice to know that he wanted to take them, it was nice to know they were loved. Okay master, but don't be too long, I wouldn't be able to control myself either with you being completely in the room next door. Kyuubi winked mischievously and the others nodded with glazed over eyes, blood pouring down their noses. Naruto shivered involuntarily at the looks he was getting. He walked into the bathroom and had his cold shower. When he got redressed, he opened the door to see all of his mates with dreamy looks in their eyes. They snapped out of their trances when they heard Naruto cough loudly. They all blushed extremely, knowing they had been caught by the man they all loved. Naruto smirked at their reactions and shook his head. Shinigami-sama told me before I was brought back in time that he had talked to Ojiazan. He said that he told the old man about everything, from where I came from to what deal I made with him to you all being my lovers and mates. He also explained to me that when I use my mate mark on you, we will be able to communicate from afar and be able to send mental images and such to each other. And the mate mark will also make you like me and Kyuubi-chan here. You will become half demons, you will be able to use demonic chakra. Have 2 fox ears and you will have 1 tail, except for Hinata-chan, she is supposed to have 3. Naruto said as everyone nodded their understanding. Naruto-sama, when will we kill the Uchiha and the pink whore? Kurenai asked as she an eyebrow. The other girls nodded furiously. They wanted to rip the arrogant up. Naruto sighed at his red-eyed mate's bloodlust. Although he had the same thoughts and needs that she did, he would make pay for his insolence. When the time comes, right now we all need to be aware that tomorrow is team signing day. Kurenai-chan, Anko-chan, I need you two to talk to the old man and ask him to mix up the old teams a bit. I really don't want to be stuck on a team with the 22. That would be troublesome, so to say, Naruto said as he sighed. Kurenai and Anko chuckled as they nodded their heads. So should we go to see Hokage-sama now? Kurenai asked seriously. Naruto nodded his head yes as he led his mates out of the door, but before he left he and Kyuubi used a genjutsu to cover their tails and ears. Kyuubi and Hinata wrapped an arm around his waist as he did the same to them. Ino and Tenten wrapped an arm around Kyuubi and Hinata. Anko and Kurenai did the same to Ino and Tenten. The group walked through the crowd stunned that the demon spawn had so many admirers, and that some of them were from decent families. It sickened them to watch the Hyuga princess and the next in line for the heir to the Hyuga household walk through the streets holding on to him like that. Hinata and the other girls saw these glares and leveled their own back at them. Naruto smiled sadly. He may not have the villagers' respect or liking in this time, but he knew he would earn it. Don't worry girls, they'll see what I really am when I'm older. For now I just need to prove my strength and loyalty, Naruto said kindly as he gave a reassuring squeeze to both Hinata and Kyuubi. I will not have these simpletons believe you to be a bad person, master. You're the purest soul to have ever graced this earth with your presence. Kyuubi shouted out as she sent glares to the ones that snorted. I'm not that great a guy. Naruto blushed as he looked away to hide his blush. Hinata and Kyuubi squeezed him closer to them. Yes, you are, master. We heard you begging for the life of Shion to be saved. You would have rather died there and then and let that be the end of it rather than watch her die again. We know how big your heart is, Naruto-sama. Don't deny yourself the honor that you so greatly deserve, Kyuubi said as she smiled at Naruto's embarrassed blush. The other girls smiled at it too. Kyuubi-chan, why do you call me master and sama? Naruto asked her. Everyone smirked at this. They knew why Kyuubi called him master. Sure, they would call him master and sama sometimes to show their degree of love for him, but Kyuubi called him master because of other reasons also. The reason I call you master is because I believe I have done you great wrongs. Because of me your life has been so horrible and abusive, so I call you master in a show of respect. I love and respect you too much for me to call you kun, so therefore I will always refer to you as master or sama, Kyuubi said as she hugged him to her closer. Naruto smiled sadly. He didn't think that she did anything wrong. If anything, right now she was making his life better. If it wasn't for her, then he wouldn't be here right now. He wouldn't have the love of 11 beautiful women, and he sure as hell wouldn't have been happy. Kyuubi-chan, you have done nothing wrong to me. In fact, you've made my life a lot better. I don't think I could live much longer if I had to live in that world of hate, but now I have more people to protect and a lot more power to protect them with. So please, don't feel bad about all of this. I'd hate it if you were to blame yourself, Naruto said kindly as he ran his hand and stroked her waist. She quietly moaned at the warm contact of her lover's hand. Naruto smiled at his mate's reaction. But I will still call you master, because you are the only man I would ever deem worthy to call master, the only person I would call master, the only man I would ever give myself to, Kyuubi said seductively as she removed her hand from his waist and moved it slowly down to his hips. Before Naruto could protest to her actions, she grabbed a hold of his precious manhood. You see this, people? This is where my babies come from, Kyuubi shouted out for all to hear, the people looking at her through looks of detest and disgust. Naruto went red in the face and the other girls giggled. The group made their way through the crowd of leery civilians who shot the group dirty looks. The group found their way to the Hokage Tower. They all went up to the Hokage's office and waited outside until allowed in by the old man's secretary. The secretary came out of the Hokage's office and motioned for the group that they could see him now. Naruto and his partners entered the room to see a pale old man shakily smoking his pipe. Naruto smirked at the old man's incapability to handle rough news. When Naruto sat down, the girls around him sat down in a chair and scooted it so they sat next to him. Sarutobi looked up from his paperwork and looked at the blonde boy who was apparently 19 in mind but 15 in body. Hey Ojiazan, Naruto said in a happy demeanor. He would have embraced his surrogate grandfather, but he decided the old man needed time to adapt to the situation. Sarutobi smiled and stopped his shaking. He wasn't scared, but he sure was shocked. So Naruto, is it true what Shinigami-sama says? That you're actually 19, and that all these women and more are to be your mates? Sarutobi asked as he took another puff from his pipe. Naruto nodded happily. Yeah, old man. These are my loves. Temari, Isaribi, Shion, Tsunade and Shizune are on their way, Naruto said happily as the other girls giggled at his happiness. They loved to see it when he was happy. Sarutobi got a minor nosebleed that he wiped away with a small cloth that he always keeps in his pocket. Naruto glared at the perverted old man's way of thinking. This glare earned a chuckle from the old man. Let an old pervert have his fun, Gaki, Sarutobi joked as he put the cloth away. The other girls glared at the old man for calling their Naruto-kun a Gaki. He's 19 emotionally and in his mind. And his body is strangely toned and built like his 19-year-old form, but he's still small like he was back then. Kurenai wondered. Sarutobi chuckled at that. Well, seems as though he's 19 emotionally and in his mind, then I guess he's able to marry. Sarutobi chuckled loudly. The entire group blushed bright red at that. Old enough to kill, old enough to drink, gamble and have, Sarutobi continued as he chuckled louder. The girls blushed even further at this point. Are you saying that we can marry Naruto-kun? Hinata asked shyly as she blushed even more red, which seemed impossible. Sarutobi smirked at the deeply blushing girls. When he and all you turn chunin, I will allow it, because when you're chunin you're technically allowed to go on missions which include drinking, gambling and having, well, making an illusion of someone having, but still, so you all want to marry him? Sarutobi asked the group. The group shyly nodded their heads with Naruto happily blushing further. Sarutobi smirked at this. He was loving how lucky his surrogate grandchild was. Then it's settled. I'll write up the contracts for you all. Unfortunately for you, Ino and Hinata, you need to have your fathers sign the paper, because you're both in registered clans of Konoha, so your clan head must agree and sign the paper, Sarutobi said with a chuckle as both preteens sighed in defeat. This would be hard for them, but they both had a foolproof plan. They had knowledge that Naruto was the fourth son, and that the clan heads would love to pair him off to their daughters. The girls all nodded again. Hinata spoke up first. I'm okay with it, Hokage-sama. I know my father will want me to marry Naruto-kun because in the future when my father finds out about Naruto being Minato's son he literally pushes me to get to know him better, Hinata said with a sigh. Sarutobi laughed at this. Hiyashi would definitely do this. He would definitely push his daughter to marry the son of the strongest ninja Konoha has known. The group said their goodbyes to the aged Hokage before they left. The group made it back to Naruto's apartment. Naruto mentally sighed in defeat. How was he going to get 7 girls to sleep comfortably in his small apartment? Okay girls, this is what I'm going to do, Naruto said as he gained the attention of the group. First I'm going to go back to Ojiazan's office and pick up some money from my inheritance, then I'm going out to buy a decent-sized house. Old man won't allow me the Namikaze compound until I turn chunin, Naruto said as he walked back to the office of the Hokage. The other girls frowned. They didn't want him spending and wasting money on them. They were fine with sleeping on the floor of the apartment. You don't have to buy a house, Naruto-kun, Tenten said with the others voicing their agreement. Naruto smiled at the group. Don't worry, in the future I spent that fortune like there was no tomorrow and I still didn't even take 0.1% of the money. Trust me, go get your stuff ready and I'll come pick you all up. I know you all like the house I'm planning to buy, Naruto said as he smiled and started to jog to the Hokage tower waving his hand behind him. The girls smiled kindly at the man they were falling deeper and deeper in love with. He's so generous and kind, Ino squealed as the other girls nodded and started to daydream and drool as they thought about the man they loved and the only man they would ever love. Oh, Naruto arrived back at the Hokage tower. He entered the old man's room and sat down on the chair opposite to the old man. Sarutobi looked in an eyebrow at the blonde 15-year-old going on 19. May I help you with anything, Naruto? Sarutobi asked as he took a puff from his pipe. Naruto nodded his head. I would like my inheritance, excluding the house of course. I know I'm not allowed to enter the grounds honorably unless I'm Chunin, Naruto said in a serious voice. Sarutobi studied the blonde before nodding his head in acceptance. He went over to the picture of the fourth Hokage and sighted it open. Behind the picture was a metal safe that had a dial with numbers painted on the edges of the dial. Sarutobi opened the lock and opened the door to the safe. Awaiting inside were 2 pairs of keys, 2 large golden-plated scrolls and 2 smaller silver-plated scrolls. Sarutobi picked up the 4 scrolls and sealed them into a smaller scroll. He handed Naruto the small scroll and one of the 2 keys and placed the other back in the safe. The key Naruto had was the key to his bank safe. The key Sarutobi had in the safe was the key to the Namikaze compound. Oh, and one more thing. I'm going to need you to place me on a different team than Team 7. I can't work with that brooding prick and that loyal whore Sakura. In the future they do horrible things. To put it short, the Uchiha betrays the village and Sakura believed that he loved her. They ended up killing both me, my love Shien, and our unborn baby, Naruto said as he clenched his hands in rage. He let a few tears make their way down his face. Sarutobi was shocked, but he nodded sadly. And I need you to look the other way when Sasuke and Sakura die on the wave mission, Naruto said coldly. Sarutobi gasped, but he understood that Naruto needed to do this. Shinigami said that Naruto needed to right a lot of wrongs. Sarutobi nodded once again. Thanks Ojiazin, as soon as the Chunin exam is over I expect to be given the keys to my compound, Naruto stated as he left the Hokage's office saying his goodbyes to his surrogate Ojiazin. Sarutobi sighed at this. Naruto was out for blood and revenge, and he couldn't blame him for doing it. Naruto entered the bank with his father's money in it and took out a reasonable amount. He left with people staring at him with wide eyes. They had just found out that the demon child was the 4th son. Naruto walked through the village blocking out the hateful glares he received from the general public. Naruto was surprised to say that he had a crowd of civilian girls following him with hearts in their eyes. Am I really that good looking now? Naruto asked himself as he walked through the village. In a comical fashion Naruto met up with a certain Uchiha, who also had his fangirls following him. When they met up Naruto's newly established fan club and Sasuke's bimbo fan club stood quite a way away from the 2 boys staring each other down. Naruto growled venomously at the emo tem. I can kill him on the wave mission. I can kill him on the wave mission, Naruto repeated through his mind. He had a lot of willpower to show no emotion to the man who killed his lover, his baby and himself in the future. Sasuke just smirked at the blonde-haired Dobi. Hey Naruto Baka, you want to move out of my way? I don't have time to play kiddie games with a nobody from the streets, Sasuke smirked as he saw the irritated look on Naruto's face. Naruto had to remind himself that he would get his revenge in about 5 days' time. He contemplated ripping him apart at the seams. Hey Baka, I'm talking to you, don't ignore me, Sasuke said as he stepped forward challengingly. It was a well-known fact that the Uchiha, prodigy, hated to be ignored. Naruto smirked. He found the emo's weakness. Did any of you girls hear that? I could have sworn I heard the sound of a gopher being raped by an elephant whiz past my ears. Must just be Sasuke bitching about power again, huh? Naruto asked the developing crowd that started giggling, some chuckling, some even laughing hysterically. Sasuke growled dangerously as his cheeks went bright red. What was that, Dobi? I dare you to say that again. Sasuke yelled out in utter rage as he started to clench his hands and grind his teeth. Naruto smirked. He was going to love this. I'm sorry I can't understand you. Maybe if you took that 13-foot pole out of your then maybe you'd be able to speak coherent words, Naruto said as he was inwardly dying from laughing. He had to keep a calm demeanor so he only smirked. Everyone was currently in hysterics. Sasuke was as red as blood. He put Hinata to shame. Who TT told why you ab out my SS stick? Sasuke stuttered terrified. It was then that everyone stopped laughing and checked his face to see if he was serious. When they found they were rolling on the floor absolutely crying with hysteria. Naruto couldn't keep it in anymore. The rumors were true. Sasuke was gay. All his fangirls whined slightly, but they noticed how good Naruto looked, so they decided to be his fangirls from now on. Ha 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 ha. Oh my god. It's true. The last Uchiha is gay. Ha ha ha. Naruto shouted out as he was left crying on the floor. Sasuke almost passed out from embarrassment, but he wouldn't allow the classes, dead last, to outdo him. Sasuke charged while screaming a death cry. Naruto got up effortlessly without using his arms to get up. As Sasuke swung for him, Naruto lifted his knee and brought it to his stomach. Sasuke went flying through the air and landed in a nearby parlor stand. The crowd was amazed by such a display of skill and raw power. Naruto Fan Club, attack! A random girl in the audience shouted as all the girls in the crowd ran towards him. Naruto jumped up onto a nearby roof to escape the swarming fangirls. Naruto ran to the house's destination that he had decided on buying. 5 minutes later, Naruto had arrived at the house. The word house was a joke, it was actually a mansion. When Naruto was younger in his past life, he used to walk past that house every day, admiring its beauty. The man inside was selling it to whoever had the cash at hand. Naruto opened the gate to the mansion and walked to the top of the small hill that the house was built on. Naruto knocked on the door and awaited for an answer. The door started to open and what greeted Naruto was a rather skinny man with a slight baldness at the top of his head. The man was wearing an upper-class civilian suit. The man smiled gently at the small boy. "And how may I help you, dear boy?" the nice man asked with a kind small smile. Naruto was taken aback by this. Someone in this village didn't mind him at all. Someone was actually being nice to him. "Oh, yes, actually. Before you start, this is not a joke. I am here to purchase your house," Naruto said as he pulled out his frog wallet. "It's no longer a purse, get over it, ROFL." The man stared in awe at the money the young boy had. The man was actually speechless, so Naruto had to start the conversation. "I saw the sign outside the house that says, 'For sale,' and I would like to buy your house. I believe the price was 6 million ryo." Naruto asked and the man nodded dumbly. Naruto smiled kindly as he handed the money to the man. The man snapped out of his stupor and smiled kindly back. "Well, I didn't have much personal belongings here. I'll call the moving people and they can help me move what little belongings I want from the house," the nice man said. Naruto nodded. "No problem," Naruto said as he grinned widely as he rested his arms on the back of his head. 1 hour later. "Well, I think that's everything. The house is now in your name. Here's the papers to prove that, and I guess I wish you all the best. See ya around, kid," the nice man said as he rode in the carriage that was driven by a servant of some sort. The other 5 carriages carried the rest of his belongings. Naruto smiled as he exited his house and locked up the gate. He ran across the rooftops as fast as he could to get to his apartment where his mates are. Naruto made it to his apartment in less than 30 seconds, and he had to run from the far end of the village where all the rich people live to the other edge where all the poor people live. Naruto opened the door and walked in only to see all the girls hanging around his room. Most of them were half. Naruto had to shut his door quick before anybody saw. When he turned around, nosebleed evident on his face, the girls glomped him. The girls started kissing random parts of his body as they clung to said part. Naruto was getting passionately kissed by Ino, who was on his chest. Ino's tongue forcing its way into his mouth. Naruto moaned as Ino started to lick around the walls of his mouth. Naruto complied by sticking his tongue into her mouth, their tongues seeming to dance in each other's locked mouths. Kyuubi was licking the left side of his face, while Tenten licked the right. All these sensations and groping sent Naruto over the edge as his member grew to great lengths. Ino, who was the one on top of him, groaned as she felt his member stroke against her pelvis. On sheer instinct she started to grind her hips into Naruto's. Before it could carry on, Naruto stopped her. She nodded to Naruto sadly. She turned to Hinata and started to joke and tease her slightly. You better hurry up and take his virginity. I can't wait another second. I need him inside of me. Ino groaned as the rest of the girls got off of Naruto. Hinata giggled at Ino's playful tease. Hinata promised herself that after all the craziness died down, and after Naruto had completed his mission to wave, that she would ride him till his juices were all gone and dried up. Come on girls, I brought a house for us all to stay in, Naruto said happily as he gathered all of his stuff. The girls nodded happily as they grabbed Naruto's waist or a waist of another girl and began to walk to their new house. When they all arrived at the house, the girls had their jaws on the floor. Naruto smiled at their shocked expressions. He had to start moving again for them to move with him. Naruto opened the gates to the mansion. He and the girls made their way slowly and leisurely up the hill to the mansion. Naruto opened the doors to the mansion, revealing solid marble floors. The staircase itself was solid marble and looked perfect. To his left was the living area with the 65-inch HD-ready TV. A nice pearl white sofa that went in a straight line and then turned at a 90-degree angle. The flooring for the living room was a royal red rug that felt pleasant to the feet. To the left of the main hall was the kitchen area. It appeared to be big enough for 10 chefs to simultaneously work with ease and comfort of space. The kitchen's cutlery and appliances were the best money could buy. Naruto led them speechlessly through the living area. Through the living area was another area of living space that had a massive dining table and many chairs going up and down the great table. It was clearly the dining room. Out back they could see two other buildings, one they figured to be an indoor bathhouse, and the other to be the dojo. Out in the garden they could see a lake that also belonged to the house. A nice clean white boat was on the docks. Out in the back were many fruit trees and bushes. To the far left was a small pond that was filled with koi fish and other pond life. Naruto and the girls went upstairs to see that there was about 20 bedrooms. One being the master bedroom. The girls blushed at the thought of sleeping with Naruto. The big bed in the master bedroom was about as wide as 4 king-sized beds and as long as 5. Well, I'm going to bed, Naruto said as he turned around and went downstairs. The girls were confused with this. But Naru-kun, the master bedroom is up here, Hinata said as the other girls nodded. Naruto turned around and smiled a small smile. I'm sorry, but I don't trust myself to sleep in the same bed as any of you yet, especially since I saw you all. In fact, I think I'm going to take a cold shower before I go to bed, Naruto said as he turned around and entered the large bathroom that had a shower, bath, jacuzzi in it. Don't leave that big thing in the dark too long, Naruto-kun, Anko smirked. The other girls grinned devilishly as he closed the door. He decided to lock it, just for safety. After Naruto finished in the shower, he went downstairs to sleep on the sofa. He knew he could have slept in one of the other rooms, but there was the chance of one of the girls coming into his room and having their way with him while he slept. He couldn't take the risk. Naruto drifted off to sleep. Tomorrow would be the day the genin would be assigned teams. Naruto walked through the streets of Konoha with all of his lovely ladies following him. Naruto was actually happy to go to the academy for once. He would get to save a lot of people's lives that had been lost to the evils of this world. Anko, Kurenai and Kyuubi left the group saying their goodbyes to their lover and fellow Naruto lovers. Tenten had to meet up with her team, so she had to leave too. She gave Naruto a quick kiss on the cheek and ran off. Naruto blushed and smiled at the contact. Ino and Hinata grabbed either side of his waist as they walked to the academy. Naruto hoped that he wasn't paired on the team with Sasuke and Sakura. Where's Kyuubi-chan going? Naruto asked as he watched Kyuubi go with Kurenai and Anko. She's helping Kurenai-chan and Anko-chan with team pairings. When you get placed on a team, she will be your bodyguard. We and the other girls went back to the Hokage office after you left. We asked if we could be put on a special team, where it will be you, 2 of us girls, and either Kurenai-chan or Anko-chan as your sensei. When the other girls arrive, the teams will be slightly changed, Hinata said as she nuzzled into the crook of his neck. Naruto smiled and kissed her on the top of her head. I love you all, you know that. Naruto asked as the two girls giggled. It was then that they noticed that they had made it to the academy. Better get this over and done with, huh? Naruto asked as they both nodded. They entered the academy with the other students giving annoyed, surprised looks at the blonde. He had two hot girls holding onto his waist. They felt confused as to why strong, cute kunoichis like them would want a dead last, like Naruto. The girls gave glares to the ones they heard say something bad about the man they loved. The three entered the class and all talking stopped. The entire class looked to the front. Some of the girls had hearts in their eyes as they saw Naruto walk in. They had seen Naruto without that god-awful jacket on. To say they were surprised at how well defined he was an understatement. Ino and Hinata started to glare at the girls drooling as they looked at him. Naruto now had lost all baby fat that he once had, it was now all muscle. The three sat down quietly as to not direct too much attention to them, but Sasuke was having none of it. Hey blonde baka, why are you here? Last I heard you failed, Sasuke said arrogantly. Naruto smirked, he had a perfect comeback. Oh, didn't you hear Yaoi Tem? I passed, Naruto said smugly as Sasuke blushed. All the girls in the room snickered at the nickname. Kiba and Choji were in hysterics at this. They had heard about Sasuke coming out of the closet. Shino, strangely, seemed to be forcing down a smile, and doing a terrible job at it. Shikamaru, who had just woken up, mumbled troublesome, and nodded back off to sleep. Before Sasuke could retort back, Iruka poofed into the room. Now we all know why we're here, don't we? I'm going to be signing you all teams. There's been a slight change in some of the teams since yesterday, so here are your new groups, Iruka said as he smiled up at Naruto, who smiled back. Iruka went through all the team until he got to Team 7. Team 7 will consist of Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno. Iruka didn't get to continue before there was a wooting being made by Sakura. Oh yeah, it bitches, he's mine, Sakura shouted out in glory. The other girls started to snicker, before it turned into hysterics. Sakura was confused at this point. You can have him, didn't you hear? Sasuke is, fairy boy. A random girl in the crowd said as laughter erupted. Sasuke blushed immensely and tried to hide his face under his desk. Sakura looked very confused. Fairy boy is a term used for gay people. It's an expression just like coming out of the closet. Hope that helped ya, cheeky smiley face. As I was saying, Team 7 will consist of Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and Sai. He strangely has no last name, and your Jonin instructor will be Kakashi Hatake. Iruka said with Sai using a fake smile. Naruto almost laughed out loud upon seeing his ex-teammate. He remembered how annoying he was. Everyone in the room looked at Sai. He was quite strange to them. Stop looking at my, it's not yours to look at, Sai said, smiling. Everyone growled at this. Naruto broke out laughing, and so did Hinata and Ino. They remembered how Naruto told them how Sai used to be. Anyway, Team 8 will consist of Kiba Inuzuka, Shino Aburame, and Genzi Uzi OC. Your Jonin instructor will be Kurenai Yuhi, Iruka said as he pulled out a large ruler. He swung the ruler and it bopped Shikamaru on the head. He awoke from his sleep with a startle. Stop sleeping in my class, Iruka shouted out as his head suddenly grew 5 times its usual size with a vein above his right eye. Shikamaru sighed in defeat. It was too troublesome to say troublesome, ironic. Sasuke stared at the stick Iruka was holding up and started to drool. He let an involuntary shiver go through him. Naruto saw this and broke out in hysterics again. Everyone else was confused but decided to ask later. Anyway, Team 9 is still in commission, so I'll skip to Team 10. Team 10 will consist of Shikamaru Nara, Choji Akamichi, and Amy Abizi OC. Your Jonin instructor will be Asuma Sarutobi, Iruka said as Shikamaru looked at his best friend and smiled. Choji smiled back at him. Team 11 will consist of Naruto Uzumaki, Hinata Hyuga, and Ino Yamanaka. Your Jonin instructor will be Anko Mitarashi, Iruka said with a smile as he looked up to see his favorite pupil. Naruto smiled back as Hinata and Ino hugged him. Iruka was beyond surprised. Was Naruto dating both Ino and Hinata? The group sat and waited for their Jonin instructors to arrive. Naruto decided to have some fun. Hey Shikamaru-san, you're smart. If Sasuke admits to being gay, and the girls find out about this, then how many fangirls should he have left? Naruto asked. Shikamaru smirked and decided to go along with his friend's little joke. Just the one, Sakura Haruno, Shikamaru said as the other girls started giggling. Sakura just sent an irritated look to Shikamaru. My Sasuke-kun is not gay. Sakura shouted out. Sasuke looked at her angrily before going back to brooding. Naruto nudged both Ino and Hinata. They looked at him as he started to imitate Sasuke in his stance. Naruto just sat there pretending to brood. The others laughed at his antics. At this moment Anko was the first to arrive. She looked at Naruto and blushed. Naruto smiled back at her. Everyone besides the to-be Konoha 12 glared at him. He was on a team with 3 hot women, while they had to live on a sausage fest team. Team 11 rounded the corner to the classroom before Anko grabbed Naruto's jacket and pushed him to the wall. Naruto didn't get chance to speak because Anko had knelt down slightly to bring him into a passionate kiss. After a minute Anko had to let go before any of the other Jonin instructors arrived. If she was caught making out with a 15-year-old genin it would have been the talk of the village. As much as I would like to stay like that all day, we have things to do, Anko said with a smirk. Naruto nodded his head as he blushed. The group made their way to a tall building near the Hokage Tower. Okay, I know everything about all of you and you know everything about me, and I know that you could easily pass any tests I throw at you, so instead of doing any tests we're going straight to C. Rank missions. I say C for now. We don't want to cause too much suspicion. We need to react realistic when it comes to strength level. Apparently there's a mission coming up. Sarutobi-sama says it's said to be a C rank but it's actually an A rank. He referred to it as wave mission. He said you'd understand Naruto-kun. Anko said as Naruto nodded his head. It's the mission I had in my past life with Team 7. The client hasn't got enough to pay for an A rank so he lies and says it's a C rank. We encountered 2 guys that don't deserve to die. One named Zabuza of the Bloody Mist, and the other is Haku. Haku was the person who helped me fulfill and complete my Nindo, to protect my precious people at all costs, Naruto said with a smile and a faraway look. The girls smiled back at this look. So anyway, until this mission we are to train, even if it's only D rank missions, we need to keep a believable strength level about us. You can go nuts as soon as the Chunin exams come. You don't have to act weak. Just don't show anyone your full strength if you can help it, Anko said. The group nodded in agreement. Oh. 6 days later, Naruto's mansion. Midnight. Naruto lay asleep on the settee downstairs. That's the English word for coach. For those who do not know laughing face, it was the night before he went on the mission to Wave. He had been told by Sarutobi a few days ago that he would go on the Wave mission with his entire team, Kyuubi and Team 7. Team 7 was going per request of Naruto and the other girls. They wanted to slit the emo's throat and gouge out his eyes. Naruto was about to fall asleep when he felt a weight slowly lower onto his body. Naruto opened his eyes and his met sky blue orbs that were shaking slightly. Naruto was concerned now. What's wrong, Ino-chan? Naruto asked worriedly. Ino embraced him and sighed in contempt. Naruto was confused and was about to ask again when. Nothing is wrong, Naruto-kun. Us girls get kind of lonely when you're not with us, and tonight I couldn't stand it so I came here to sleep with you, Ino said as she snuggled up to his chest. Naruto smiled and blushed at that. No problem, Ino-chan. I'm sorry that I haven't had much time to be with any of you. At these times I won't be able to spend much quality time with any of you. I still have a lot to do before I can relax with you all, Naruto said sadly. Ino smiled and got as close to Naruto as physically possible. She kissed his chest softly. Not a problem, Naruto-kun. I know you have things to do, as do us all. I know you will treat us all right. It's one of the many reasons I love you so much. Ino said as she shuffled up and kissed Naruto hard on the lips. Naruto blushed and kissed hard back. After a few minutes of tongue wrestling, Naruto decided to reluctantly end it. "Good night, Ino-hime," Naruto said softly. "Good night, Naru-sama," Ino said softly as the two of them drifted off to sleep. Oh, dreamscape. Naruto awoke in a weightless plane that seemed to stand still. The background was that of space. A dark spiral that was slowly getting bigger made its way into existence near where Naruto was floating. Naruto didn't panic because he had seen this happen before. "It seems Shinigami-sama wishes to tell me something," Naruto thought as a ghostly figure made its way into the unknown plane that they were both in. "Do not fear, Naruto-san," Shinigami said. "I have brought you here for one purpose. Kami-chan and Yami-chan wish that you be blessed by my power. They wish for you to be my avatar, and they wish for you to have their blessings, making you half angel half devil. Now don't get devils mixed up with demons. They are two very different beings. Demons are highly powerful beings created by the movers and shakers of the universe. Devils are the minions of Yami herself. Angels are the minions of Kami herself. Do you understand?" Shinigami asked. Naruto was too shocked to answer. He just went extremely white in the skin. "Anyway, as my avatar you will receive the power of fire. You may use my powers to bring justice to the evil ones. As Yami's and Kami's apprentice, you will be able to control the power of darkness and light. Also, as my avatar it will be entrusted to you that when you kill a person of great evils, then you send his soul to me. You will be given natural senses that allow you to tell if someone is good or bad. The eviler he is, then the higher the reward you get for giving me his soul," Shinigami said. Naruto slightly snapped out of his shock. What rewards?" Naruto asked shakily. Shinigami smirked at this. "Each dark soul has an amount of soul points. Each soul point will buy you an item that is on my list. Some are weapons, some are armors. I may even allow it, if you have enough soul points, to raise the dead for you. No strings attached," Shinigami said with a smirk. Naruto perked up at that. I could resurrect my family?" Naruto asked hopefully. Shinigami nodded ghostly. Naruto had tears of joy making their way down his face. "Not to mention the summons. You are the first avatar I have taken on in over 3 million years. As such I will give you your starter uniform. As you collect more souls you will be able to buy better armors and weapons that are only meant for a death god or his avatar. And as for your beginning summon, I guess I could teach you the undead horde summon," Shinigami said as he started to ponder. "What does the undead horde do?" Naruto asked, extremely curious. He was starting to get excited and giddy now. "Depending on how much chakra you put into it, it will allow you to summon a horde of skeleton warriors. The more chakra you use, the more skeleton warriors will come to aid you. The skeleton boss summon is a giant, as big as a fully grown evergreen," Shinigami said as he almost chuckled at the gleam in Naruto's eye. Naruto was lost for words at how amazing it was. "There are other summons too?" Naruto excitedly asked. He was practically bouncing of a non-excitant floor. Shinigami nodded. "There is indeed. There are many different kinds, all ranging from power. The best I could let you have is the S-class demon summon, allowing you to summon S-rank demons to help aid you," Shinigami said as he almost couldn't help but smile at the blonde's face. Shinigami wouldn't admit it, but he really liked this blonde Gaki. "If you would be so kind as to sign this contract, by signing this you are agreeing to be my avatar," Shinigami said as he handed Naruto a yellow scroll that seemed quite aged. Naruto took the scroll and took Shinigami's dark flame pen. After a few minutes of Naruto signing his name on every page, the deal was sealed. "Thank you, Naruto-san. Now if you would so kindly follow me, Kami and Yami await you," Shinigami said as he led Naruto through a rip in time and space. When they came out, Naruto was buzzed. That trip was really cool. "Awesome," Naruto shouted as Shinigami couldn't keep it in anymore and let out a dark, dry chuckle, although Naruto knew it was a friendly, kind chuckle. Naruto heard giggling coming to his right. As he looked over to them he gasped in surprise. There was 2 females standing there as they giggled. The first woman was around 21 years old, She wore a white dress with red symbols for Kami on her shirt. The second wore a red dress with white symbols for Yami on her shirt. The one known as Kami had white, silvery hair that sparkled, her eyes were gold with a silver pupil, she had a pale complexion and was undeniably pretty. The one known as Yami had long red hair that went down to a little above the waist, her eyes were bright red with an orange pupil, she had a tanned complexion and was also unrealistically pretty. Why Yami-sama ke Kami-sama? Naruto asked as he bowed to the two movers and shakers. The two women smiled kindly, they walked up to Naruto and lifted him up. There is no need to bow Naruto-kun, and please call us by the suffix, chan, it would make us a lot more comfortable, Yami said with a hint of seductiveness. Kami sensed this and glared at her sister. Naruto blushed at the fact that one of the gods who ruled our world was coming on to him. We are here to ask him to become our apprentices, not to ride him till he dies. Kami silently shouted to her sister as she pulled her away, out of hearing range. Unfortunately, the two of the greatest beings in the world forgot that Naruto was now a half-demon and could easily hear the two. Naruto blushed immensely at this. And why not? He's a good guy, and we both blessed him if you know what I mean, Yami said seductively as Kami blushed again. You're too horny for your own good, although I wouldn't mind riding him either, Kami said as she started to go into thought. Yami saw the nosebleed coming from her sister's nose and decided to poke fun. I say we double team him and take him for all he's worth, Yami whispered into her sister's ear, making her jump. Kami was highly tempted to take her up on that offer. All the while they were talking, Naruto's face got redder and redder. And his eyes got wider and wider until he felt they were as big as dinner plates. Oh, but we can't, Kami said, sounding disappointed. We have to talk to him and all. Maybe next time, Kami said to her sister. Yami nodded sadly as well. They both made their way over to a red-faced Naruto and a snickering Shinigami. Both women were confused until Shinigami burst out into full-blown laughter and Naruto passed out. Kami and Yami went extremely red in the face. How much did he hear? Kami asked worriedly. Shinigami stifled his laughing until later. He heard everything. He's half demon, you know, Shinigami said as he went back into a laughing fit again. Both girls glared at the death god, who surprisingly flinched under all the ki being emitted. Wake him up, Ghosty, Yami said amused. Shinigami scoffed at the nickname. Naruto, Shinigami cooed. I have ramen here for you, he continued to coo. Naruto bolted up and started to rub his eyes. Where's Ramen-chan? Naruto asked groggily. Both girls giggled at his antics. Shinigami smirked at his use of suffix for a food. Wake up, Baka, Shinigami stated amused. The girls stopped their giggling as Naruto got up. When Naruto saw the girls, he blushed and looked away. Yami and Kami did the same thing. Shinigami was highly amused. Naruto-kun, we offer you the power to become both of our apprentices. You'd become a god on earth. You'd gain the power of both light and darkness, the powers of both angels and devils. You'd be in control of armies of devils and angels. You'd be our champion, Kami stated with a blush. Yami bit her nail and looked longingly at Naruto, who just blushed further under the stairs. So what can I expect for accepting all this? Naruto asked. Shinigami smirked and decided to get involved. Well, here are your gifts from me, Shinigami said as he pulled out a whip that was alight in flames. The whip was basically just that, one big, water-resistant, continually burning fire whip. Naruto gasped at the sight of such an extraordinary weapon. And this, Shinigami said as he pulled out a giant scythe. The scythe was almost as big as Naruto himself. The scythe's length was completely black, the blade at the end was a dark-tinted glass. Near the base were 7 runes going up the scythe. All of the runes stood for an element. Earth, fire, water, air, lighting, darkness, light. If you pumped chakra into the rune and then swung the scythe as you released the chakra, then the corresponding element would come out at the end of the blade. And now this will seal the deal properly, Shinigami said as he pulled a seal out of his jacket. the death god thrust the seal into Naruto's stomach as he applied chakra to the seal. The point at which Shinigami's seal touched glowed a deathly dark glow for a second before receding into the seal. When Naruto got up, he felt different. He felt more powerful, he felt stronger, his senses felt more acute. Shinigami pulled a mirror out and made Naruto look into the mirror. What Naruto saw shocked him. His hair had a darker tint to it now, his body felt more defined, he felt powerful. It was then that he noticed that he was holding his fire whip and his new scythe. Naruto pulled out the pen Shinigami had lent him and started to draw seals on both sides of his neck. When he was finished, he sealed his scythe in his right seal and sealed his fire whip in his left. Now that I've done that, please continue, Naruto said to Kami, who blushed at the boy's new look. Yami drooled at how hot he looked now. As I was saying, all you need to do is sign the contract we have, and then you will become our apprentice, Kami said as Yami continued to drool. And what are the advantages of becoming both of your apprentices? Naruto asked the two gods. Yami snapped out of her trance. Well, if you were to accept being my apprentice, you would be given the powers of a dark angel. When you call forth the power, you will transform yourself in a dark angel. Your entire body will change, the cloths you'll be wearing will change to a jet black robe, your hair will turn a dark gray and your skin will turn a light gray, your eyes will turn bright red like mine, you will sprout black wings that you could fly with, Yami said as Naruto's jaw started to drop. If you accept being my apprentice, you would be given the powers of a light angel. When you call forth the power, you will transform yourself into a light angel, your entire body will change, the cloths you'll be wearing will change to a pure white robe, your hair will turn a shining white and your skin will turn paler, your eyes will turn gold like mine, you will sprout white wings that you could fly with, Kami said as she almost word mimicked her sister. Naruto nodded and started to drool at the fact he would technically be 1/5 human, 1/5 demon, 1/5 devil, 1/5 angel and 1/5 Shinigami, death god. This would make him one powerful son of Ab. Tch, I will warn you, this will be painful, Yami said as Kami agreed with her sister. Naruto nodded his head in acceptance. He took both scrolls and signed his name onto both of them. After signing the scrolls, they poofed into nothing. After the scrolls vanished into smoke, Kami and Yami pumped their chakra into their hands. Yami's glowed bright red and Kami's glowed gold. After their hands began to glow, they rammed their palms into Naruto's stomach, sending him flying back some. Naruto got up and felt the sudden power surge flow through him. The immense pain flowed through him like none other physical pain he had felt before. He felt the world going darker and darker. Oh, mansion. Naruto awoke in a sweat. He was breathing heavily and he still felt the aftershock of the pain run through him. When Naruto's senses finally came to him, he noticed that there were weights on all of his sides. In fact, all over his body had weights. He felt slightly damp in places too. It was at this moment he heard silent weeping. Naruto opened his eyes to look into 6 pairs of teary orbs. Naruto was highly confused. The girls started to cry again, but louder this time. The girls held him tighter to them as they cried into his body. Naruto was about to ask why they were crying when Hinata spoke up. Naruto-kun. Hinata cried happily as she wrapped both arms around his neck and cried into the crook of his neck. You were screaming in pain for about 10 minutes. We didn't know what to do, so we brought you up here, Hinata said tearfully as she continued to sob. Naruto held onto each of his mates tightly as he whispered sweet nothings. When all the girls calmed down, Naruto spoke again. I have a lot to tell you all, Naruto said with all the girls nodding. Naruto went on to telling them that he was now Shinigami's avatar, both Kami's and Yami's apprentice, and even how if he killed enough evil people and sealed their souls, then he would be able to raise his family from the dead. The girls all gasped at this and held him closer. They were happy that he would be able to see his family again. They knew that if anyone deserved this, then it was Naruto. He had lived such a horrible life. Well, I do believe that today is the day that we are assigned to assist Team 7 in completing the mission to Wave, Naruto said with a smirk. He was going to have his revenge. he was going to make Sasuke beg for mercy. The other girls all got faraway looks as they jerked their heads forward every so often, fantasizing on killing the Uchiha and his faithful pink-haired bitch. Well, let's get at it, Naruto said enthusiastically as he snapped everyone out of their fantasizing. For now, Naruto and his mates made their way to the Hokage Tower to receive their mission. Naruto, Ino, Hinata, Anko and Kyuubi made their way into the Hokage's office. When they entered the room they met up with Team 7. Kakashi smiled upon seeing Naruto and he smiled back, but when Naruto's eyes met Sasuke and Sakura his blood began to boil. Hey Dobi, upset that I have the famed, copycat ninja, and you have the, snake whore, as a sensei? Sasuke asked as he crossed his arms over his waist. Sasuke was about to laugh but found his face connecting with something hard. After Naruto had heard that statement he ran at the Uchiha, barely restricting his blow, but enough to only knock him out for a while. Sakura screamed in fright as she checked to see if her Sasuke-kun was okay. It was at that moment that Naruto was close enough to make out his features. Naruto had a darker yellow-tinted hair now, he was slightly taller and had even more of an athletic build. If you got close enough you could make out the red tips on the top of his head. Naruto, what happened to you? Sarutobi asked as Kakashi and Iruka, who was also in the room, nodded in their agreement. Naruto took a deep sigh and tried to calm himself down. There's a lot to explain, Gramps, Naruto said as Sarutobi smiled that Naruto would acknowledge him as family. You know who will tell you the details while I'm away on whatever mission you have planned for me. Naruto said as he was careful not to mention Shinigami's name or the fact that he knew about the mission. Okay, no problem, I am assigning Team 11, Team 7, and Team 8 on a mission to Wave Country. This will be your first C-rank mission. Tazuna-san, you may enter now, Sarutobi said as an elderly man walked into the room. The man took a deep swig of his beverage and looked the students over. Before he could get a chance to insult a few of them, Team 8 walked in. Sorry we're late, Kiba was chasing his imaginary tail, Kurenai said with a chuckle as her 3 students walked in. Kiba looked at Naruto with a surprised look. Hey Naruto, what's up with the new look? Kiba asked as he walked over to his old-time arrogant friend. Felt that I needed to establish a new look, unfortunately I still have these awful monstrosities, Naruto said as he pulled at his top. Kiba laughed at the statement. Well, you're supposed to depart in an hour's time, that gives you all some time to shop and all, Sarutobi said with a smirk. Naruto smirked back. Thanks old man, I think I'm going to take you up on that offer. Any of you girls want anything? No problem at all, Naruto asked. The girls smiled and nodded thanking him. The group left to go get some new things. Kiba was surprised that the girls had wanted to go with him. They can't all be together, can they? Kiba thought surprised. Nah, Kiba said washing the thoughts from his mind. Tazuna was still quite drunk so he looked around the room. He saw an unconscious Sasuke and a frantically overreacting pink-haired girl running around the room screaming that he was dead. Tazuna felt the need to be sick from his over-drinking so he ran over to the corner of the room, the same corner the arrogant Uchiha lay unconscious. Tazuna was sick all over Sasuke, the majority landing on his face, near his open mouth. Owned. After Tazuna was done barfing up his morning breakfast, Sakura was starting to become sick at the sight. She ran to the nearest bin and decided to blow chunks. If we are all quite done with defiling my room with your body fluids, then I will ask you Tazuna-san to meet your ninja protectors at the north gate of this village in an hour's time, Sarutobi said, irritated as he watched his new carpet become ruined. Tazuna drunkenly nodded as he made his way out of the room. Ironically, Sasuke woke up to a horrible taste in his mouth. After fully realizing what it was and how he may have swallowed some in the possess, he was sick all over again, spewing his breakfast and Tazuna's all over Sarutobi's new carpet. Will everyone stop being sick on my carpet? Get out! Sarutobi shouted in anger and irritation. Sasuke and Sakura ran out of the room scared out of their side as he looked at the atrocious mess. Sarutobi pushed the button to the mic on his desk. Suzy, I hate to ask you this, but there's been a really bad mess made in the room, and, oh god, it smells. Sarutobi said as he and Aruka jumped out of the window and down into the streets to evade the stench, and also Sarutobi's assistant. She would skin Sarutobi when she next sees him, making her clean up sick. He knew he wasn't going to get out of this without one hell of a good apology. Oh, Konoha. Ninja appliance shop. Naruto had just walked out of his favorite ninja appliance shop. He wore black Anbu trousers with a black mesh shirt that showed off his figure. He wore black sturdy shoes that had a metal finish at the end of the boot. The metal part at the end of the boot had a slit in it. If chakra was pumped into the metal, then a 4-inch blade would come out at the end. Everyone else wore similar things to Naruto except in different color or sizes. The girls wore shirts that showed off their bust sizes. The girls wore skin-tight Anbu pants that showed off their curves. Naruto was drooling at the looks of all his girls. Wow, you all look beautiful, Naruto said quietly, due to his breath being taken away. The girls blushed for 2 reasons, the first being that they could see how well defined Naruto was now, the second being that he complimented them all on their looks. Thank you Naruto-kun, Sama, came the replies of all the girls with him. Tenten smiled as she came up to him and wrapped him in her arms. It's a shame I can't come, I have to train with bushy brows and Mr. Fate, all day today, Tenten said with a mock pout. Naruto laughed and kissed her on the lips. The other girls smiled at the display. That's not a problem Tenten-chan, I'll see you when I get back. If the girls arrive while I'm on my mission, show them to the mansion please, Naruto asked. Tenten nodded and gave him a small peck before running off to her teammates. The group left the ninja appliance shop. After Naruto had paid the money, of course, they made their way to the bridge builder. So, Naruto-kun, Hinata said curiously. Naruto looked at her, so she continued. What does this all mean, now that you're Shinigami's avatar and both Yami-sama's and Kami-sama's apprentice? She continued. Naruto smiled and answered her question. Well, for one, I'm a lot more powerful now, I have more weapons, I have special abilities, and I was told earlier on today in my head that I will have 3 special eye tricks, one being Shinigami-sama's. His will allow me to see others' souls, see if they're good or evil, and see their elemental affinities. It doesn't have much of an advantage during battle, more of a tool I can use for extracting souls, Naruto said, and the other girls nodded in awe. Naruto continued. Kami-sama gave me an eye dojutsu also. It allows me to predict what my opponent is going to do next, it allows me to see into the distance, and it allows me to see chakra coils. This eye dojutsu is supposed to be meant for battle. I am able to see my opponent's whereabouts instantly, I can find him out, see his chakra levels, and see what he's going to do to me, Naruto continued. The girls were once again baffled by the power he now has. And Yami-sama gave me another eye dojutsu. It allows me to read others' minds, I can connect with their minds if they are unconscious. It will also allow me to control demons and see through genjutsu, Naruto continued. The girls were even more astounded by the last part. See control over demons? Kyuubi asked, slightly afraid. Naruto frowned at this. You know I would never try to control you, don't you? Naruto asked. Kyuubi shot up at that. Kyuubi felt bad for making Naruto think that she didn't trust him. Of course. Sorry, I was thinking back to the Uchiha and Senju clan, the 2 founding Konoha clans. It was said that the Uchiha's Sharingan could control demons, if the Sharingan was at the right level, and the first Hokage, who was part of the Senju clan, found a way to control us. Kyuubi eyed as frantically as she tried to make sure Naruto didn't take it the wrong way. Naruto smiled and nodded his head. It was just a misunderstanding. Ah, I see, no problem then, Naruto said happily as he grinned at his little fox. She blushed and her insides fluttered a little upon seeing Naruto's infamous smile. The other girls had similar reactions even though I wasn't directed at them. The group walked for about 10 minutes leisurely until they arrived on time at the meeting place, the north gate of Konoha. When they arrived they saw the troublesome Tusum, his future surrogate big brother, and the client who was still rather drunk, but not as much. Hey Dobi, where have you been? Sasuke asked coldly. Sakura had hearts in her eyes as she watched her mysterious affection abuse the class Dobi. I have no need to tell you where I was, so I won't answer your question, Yaoi Tem, Naruto said with a smirk as the others giggled. Sasuke got red in the face. Sakura glared at the blonde, dead last of the year. Oi, Naruto no baka, how dare you insult Sasuke-kun like that? Sakura screeched as Naruto held his ears. Sasuke did the same as everyone else wasn't aware that Sakura was going to shout, so they could only cringe. Shut up bitch, I didn't ask for you to help me. Sasuke shouted as he turned around and glared at the pink-haired girl. Sakura winced at her obsession's hateful glare. Sorry Sasuke-kun, Sakura said as tears welled up in her eyes. Sasuke scoffed as he turned away from her, leaving Sakura to drench in her sorrow and sadness. Naruto smirked. The loyal Sasuke bitch got shot down. Now that's what I want to see, Naruto thought as he and the other girls smirked. Enough already, are you set Tazuna-san? Kakashi asked as the drunk man reacted in what everyone assumed was a nod. Either that or he just shit himself, either one was highly probable with the man's current state. The group started on their journey to Wave. It would be a long journey, but there was two things Naruto wanted to while here. One was to kill the Uchiha and his bitch, the other was to save Haku and Zabuza.